Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm CJ Vogel. This is Gerry Hamilton. This is normally Texas versus the SEC, but as Texas continues through its path to hopefully a national championship, it's kind of transformed into Texas versus the CFP, right? The College Football Playoff. Right now, we enter the quarterfinal stage. 8 teams remain, which means 8 quarterbacks remain, and that's what we're going to be talking about today, ranking the 8 quarterbacks remaining in the college football playoff. Of course, a lot of action coming up this week as Texas and Arizona State face off in the Peach Bowl. We'll start talking about that conversation a little bit later on as well, but it's all about the quarterbacks today. And before we dive into these rankings, because I know Gerry and I are going to differ pretty heavily on where we're going, Gerry, a quick word from our sponsor, Joy Mode.
Oh boy, this is perfect for QB conversation. Joy Mode. Well, I think I speak for most men when I say we want to have better sex. And for the sake of our partner, we probably need to have better sex. The issue is that over-the-counter erection pills contain unregulated chemicals, suggest unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we've partnered with our friends at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments or increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural, science-based supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions, including playing quarterback. Redefine your intimacy and go to tryjoymode.com for 20% off with code ONTEXAS. That's 20% off and free shipping with code ONTEXAS at tryjoymode.com.
Perfect. Thank you, Gerry. And in terms of scoring, these quarterbacks hopefully know a little bit more about that as well. But look, it's going to be different, right? Our quarterback conversations, Who's number 1? Maybe we agree there. Who's number 8? Maybe we agree there. But for the most part, everything in between, I think, is going to be a bit of a conversation starter as well. And we'd love to hear from y'all in the chat as well. So make sure to drop your quarterback rankings down below. But Gerry, starting at number 8, I have Maddox Madsen, quarterback over at Boise State. He's my number 8. Where are you headed?
Yeah, I can see why you went there. I put Gunnar Stockton just because the unknown. And I think Gunnar Stockton only 32 career passing attempts, 25 completions, no touchdowns, interception. He just hasn't played enough for me to rank him higher than 8. But I totally get where you go with Maddox Madsen. And Maddox Madsen is my number 7. I mean, I think he's done a good job game managing CJ for Boise State, which is what you really need on this team. But from a talent standpoint, not a big guy, not really a threat with his legs, isn't going to wow you with the arm talent. He really is a game manager for the best G5 team in the country.
Right.
And that's Boise State. He beat out Malachi Nelson, who was once a 5-star recruit to sign with USC. So I give him credit for that. He's managed his team very well. But when looking at him with the other guys, I just can't. I can't rank him ahead of the other guys on our list. And who'd you put at 7?
Yeah, I have Gunnar Stockton at 7. And look, the biggest thing for me is I've seen Gunnar Stockton go out and win a game because of his own efforts, right? And I don't want to completely discredit Maddox Madsen and what he's done. Look, 21 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That's called taking care of the rock. That's, to your point, being a game manager and making sure that the train stays on the rails in terms of scoring and getting to the station in the end zone. He's done that. But we've also seen, maybe the handoffs, maybe the run game take over for Boise State. And that's kind of where I take a step back and say, when all things considered, is the quarterback going to go out and make the play? We just haven't seen that a whole lot in my eyes from Maddox Madsen. Again, 7 games out of the 13 that Boise State have played this year, Gerry, he's under 175 passing yards. That's not necessarily taken over, but to his credit again, he has done enough to get Boise State to where they want to go. On the flip side, number 7 for me is Gunnar Stockton because, look, we just saw Gunnar Stockton go out and win an SEC championship game against Texas, right? A game in which they came in down 7 points at halftime. He comes in immediately, storms down the field, finds the end zone. Now, there's still plenty of unknowns with him, but at least I know when those lights are bright and the moment is needed, that's someone that I can look at and say, okay, I think he can have this offense running with 26 days in between games by the time that they get back on the field. So that's number 7 for me.
And let's say this, he better look better than 8 or 7 against Notre Dame because they've got 3 weeks to get him ready for that game.
I completely agree. But even then, it's going to be that defense. Yeah, that defense
Notre
can be the
Dame
one
defense.
rolling.
Who do
But
you have at
moving to
6, CJ?
number 6 for me, I had Riley Leonard, and I feel like that's a little low considering who's still available. But I look, Riley Leonard to me and what we saw with Notre Dame is continue to pound the ground. I didn't think Notre Dame had a great game offensively against Indiana. And, if you take away that 98-yard touchdown run, that offense really didn't have much explosivity in my eyes. And I like Riley Leonard. I think that he's more a gamer than a quarterback. He's a guy that's going to use his legs, maybe lower his shoulder a little bit more than he probably should be. He's a heck of an athlete, but in terms of sitting in a dome on the turf against other quarterbacks that are still alive, I have him at 6.
6 is tough for me because all the numbers in the world tell you Quinn Ewers is 6. I mean, there's just nothing numbers wise that pushes me off of that. So that's, but I'm going Riley Leonard at 6 as well. And look, Riley Leonard 7.1 yards an attempt. He's the lowest of the 7 quarterbacks not named Gunnar Stockton. He's completed 66.8, but again, there's not a lot of shots down the field with him. 17 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Not a big number of touchdowns either. Now, he scored 15 on the ground, 751 rushing yards, and he's probably going to make me look bad for putting a David Cutcliffe quarterback recruit number 6 on this list with some guys ahead of him. But I do think in the playoffs right now, if I had to line him up, I would put him 6, and I'm not sure I feel real comfortable with it because I think the numbers and the play suggest Quinn should be 6 on this list. But I will say Riley Leonard has been a little up and down for Notre Dame as well. But I agree with you. He's a gamer. And it's not going to shock me if he doesn't go out and play a really good game against Georgia.
I think that gamer mentality is going to carry him past whatever ranking we're currently giving him. Kind of like how Cade Klubnik, coming into that game last week against Texas. Look, that's a competitive guy. That's not a guy that's going to go out and just, freely go into his offseason. Riley Leonard, very much the same. I got to speak with him at the Manning Passing Academy, and he exudes that competitiveness. But going to 5, look, you mentioned Quinn Ewers at 6. Is he going to fall to 5 right here for you?
Yeah, he's 5 for me. And look, it's just the numbers they can't lie. I can't let my eyes lie to me as much as I like Quinn. And we cover Texas here. He's got the most interceptions of anybody in this in the playoffs, taking the most sacks. He's the only guy with negative rushing yards of any quarterback still in the playoffs. His yards per attempt is 7.6. So that 26 touchdowns, 10 interceptions is not the number you would expect for a guy that started this many games. And that interception number, you're like, well, it's not this yards per attempt. It's not like he's averaging 10 yards an attempt and everything's down the field with these interceptions. So I do have Quinn at 5, and that lines up with his QBR that's left in the playoffs. If that's the silver lining for putting Quinn at 5, because I know the Texas fan base will not like what I'm doing there, but I've got to go with my eyes and my feel.
Yeah, that's why we're doing this, to spark the conversation. I have Sam Leavitt at number 5, the Arizona State quarterback. And again, to me, he's done a great job, 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. That's kind of what you want from a guy with one of the top running backs in all of the country. Just don't derail things. Yeah. However, and going back to the conversation earlier about Maddox Madsen, he's not necessarily the guy that they lean on to win big games. When you look at who they've played, ranked opponents, Big 12 championship, Iowa State, only 17 attempts, only 12 completions, right? BYU, 16 completions, 25 attempts. They're not putting the ball in his hands as often as you would see some of these other quarterbacks. The last one I want to mention, Utah. He went 11 of 18 passing. A lot of their offensive success falls on Cam Skattebo. Now, of course, he does a big piece out of the backfield in the passing game, but when you look at what might not be available against Texans moving forward, which is Jordan Tyson, Jerry, I have a hard time believing that the Arizona State Sun Devil passing offense is going to be as successful. Good thing for them, however, his legs very much a piece of it, which moves us to the top half of our rankings, right? The final 4, the top 4, whatever you want to call it. Do you want to take it, or should I go ahead and
go ahead? Go for your 4th, and I'll go to mine.
I've got Will Howard. I've got Will Howard at 4, which, watching how he's played over the last couple of weeks, I know that Michigan game was really ugly, but look, he's playing some really good football right now. And with those wide receivers, He should be playing really good football at this experience level, at this rate. But I believe right now that you still see too much of that spill the pill, Will Howard. That's still in him more so than I think a Drew Allar, Quinn Ewers, and obviously Dylan Gabriel. That's what's keeping me from putting him higher because I do think, especially after watching him round one, Jerry, he's playing some really good football.
Yeah, so I have Howard a little bit higher. I have Levitt for me, which is crazy. He's got the number 3 QBR of anybody here. Now people say he didn't play in the SEC or Big Ten. I get it. He's also a freshman. I mean, Sam Levitt. My biggest fear for Levitt is who he's going up against. I mean, it would have been beneficial for Levitt to not have a bye. We talk about it's better for your team health wise. If I was a quarterback, I'd like to have a playoff game before I get into a quarterfinal against a defense like Texas. But they're not, and they're here. I think Levitt's feet. There's some, and when I say poor man's, it sounds like an insult, but it's not. It's actually a compliment. There's some poor man's Cade Klubnik to his game. I mean, he's got 383 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns, 97 attempts. He's been sacked 16 times, so that means he makes plays with his feet because that's considerable sack yardage taken off of that as well. So he makes a lot of plays with his feet. He keeps plays alive. I think he's got really good downfield vision, 8.8 yards an attempt, tied for second best in the college football playoff, 63.2 as far as his completion percentage, best TD interception ratio outside of Maddox Matson, the G5 quarterback at 24 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I have Sam Levitt 4, and I'll go ahead and lead into my 3 then. I have Will Howard 3. And here's the crazy thing about this, CJ. He's got the highest QBR of anybody in this playoff. I mean, that's considerable for how much maybe negativity there is around him. 9.2 yards an attempt, highest of anybody in the playoffs. 29 touchdowns, most of anybody in the playoffs. That he's got really good receiver core, but you can't sit here and say, well, Dylan Gabriel has a good receiver core and Quinn Ewers has a good receiver core. Now, if Quinn hadn't missed a couple games, I think he had the most touchdowns here, but he would also still have more interceptions than anybody else. And Will Howard does enough with his feet. He's also been sacked the least of any quarterback in this college football playoff. Something to watch against Oregon. Can they get pressure on Will Howard? He's my number 3.
I like it. I do. You won't find much, kind of rebuttal for me in that sense. My number 3 is actually Drew Allar as well. So you look at it in the sense of what they like to do. That's pound the rock, right? Just make sure that you can take care of the rock. And, 21-7 touchdown to interception ratio, it's not the prettiest, and especially in comparison to some of these other quarterbacks on the top 8 right here. But his legs have really started to come alive as well. And you're starting to see his athleticism really start to take over, right? That Big Ten championship game against Oregon, it was kind of turned into a track meet. Yes, the running game was going, but some of those throws, Jerry, kind of make me take a step back and say, okay, the 2025 season for Drew Allar, when he comes back to Penn State, I think that he might be in that conversation for the best quarterback in the country. I know it's going to be a crowded conversation, especially when you throw Arch in the mix. You got Garrett Nussmeier coming back. Who knows what happens with Jalen Milroe and Carson Beck? A lot of guys in contention to return. Right now, I look at him and say, I see the vision for what he could turn into. Still, however, there's some moments I think, the ceiling is much higher down the road than it is. He's just not a finished product at the moment. Yeah. Which leads us to our final 2. And before we get to our final 2, Jerry, a quick read from our sponsor, Joy Mode. And, of course, talking about scoring. These 2 know a lot about it.
I think I speak for most men when I say, hey, we want to have better sex. And for the sake of our partner, we probably need to have better sex. The issue is that over-the-counter erection pills, I can only handle 2 reads in one show of this, by the way, contain unregulated chemicals, suggested unsafe doses, and include the risk of several other health problems. That's why we've partnered with our friends at Joy Mode. Whether you're looking to spice up your intimate moments, increase your confidence in the bedroom, Joy Mode makes all natural, science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. That's including playing quarterback. The trademark product, the Sexual Performance Booster, is every man's solution for increased blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. It's like a pre-workout, but for sex. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals. Redefine your intimacy and go to tryjoymode.com for 20% off with code ONTEXAS, all caps. That's 20% off and free shipping with code ONTEXAS at joymode, tryjoymode.com. Ingredients with integrity. That's Joy Mode.
How about it? And rankings with integrity as
Yes.
well. We're down to our final two, Jerry. How do you want to do it? You want to go ahead and reveal your number one and then kind of go back and forth, or what are you thinking here?
Yeah, that's fine. Let's do it. I think we
All
have
right.
the same number one, by the way.
We do. Look, I'll go ahead and spoil the fun. Dillon Gabriel is my number one quarterback in this college football quarterfinal remaining. 8 quarterbacks, Dillon Gabriel, number one. Look, experience means a lot, especially experience at a high level. Texas fans are very familiar what he can do with his legs. Look back at 2023 Red River Shootout for that example. But you start piecing it together with the weapons that he has on the outside. Dillon Gabriel, when guys play 5-6 years in college football, this is what you hope they turn into, right? We saw it with Bo Nix. We saw it with Michael Penix a year ago. This is the level of football that you expect from a good college quarterback that has played a lot of college football. He's playing the right way. He's not making many mistakes. You don't see him turning the ball over. He's using his legs. He's extending plays. Oh, and he's a gamer, right, Jerry? He is a guy that's going to lower his shoulder, put his body in harm's way to get a first down, a touchdown, whatever you say. He's doing it all right now, which means Quinn Ewers is my number two. And yes, he doesn't run the football very much. He's been dinged up this year. He does turn the ball over a lot this year. But my counter to that, and Jerry, I know that this is part of the game, of those 10 interceptions, 7 of them have been tipped or hit his wide receivers and bounced up into the hands of an opponent. I know that's part of the game, and I know that you got to be a little bit better as a quarterback. But I know that more times than not, when Quinn Ewers drops back to pass, that ball's not going to be put necessarily in harm's way without something else happening in front of him at the line of scrimmage. Really, you look at the interceptions this year that haven't been tipped. It's the interception against Georgia, in which, in my eyes, a route on the outside should have been extended further to the sideline and was not for the early interception coming in from the corner. And it was the overthrow against Oklahoma where I said, wow, those two were bad decisions. Those two were deserving of interceptions. The others, you could probably argue a bit fluky with tips at the line of scrimmage, balls not being caught by its wide receivers. I know that Quinn Ewers is going to make more times than not the right decision and put the ball where it needs to go. That's my top two. That's my rant. Jerry, what do you got?
Yeah, so I have Drew Lar 2 and Dillon Gabriel 1, and I hear the argument if I have a Lar too high. I think he may be making more positive strides as a quarterback. And now he is in year 2. He should be right now and headed into the playoffs. I think Drew Lar is he's kind of coming of age a little bit. It is the way I put it as a quarterback, using the legs more. Look, his average per attempt is 8.7. When people think of the Penn State offense, they're probably surprised by that number. That his is over a yard more than Quinn Ewers at Texas. But look, he has the best safety blanket in college football in Tyler Warren. I mean, who's essentially split out tight end, but with a running game behind it. But I like what Drew Lar's done with his feet. I like the way he's attacking the game in year 2. And I put Dillon Gabriel 1. It was pretty simple. I thought about if I exchange all these guys and they were the quarterback of the same team, who would run the team the most efficiently? And I just went with Dillon Gabriel. He's been playing longer than anybody else in this playoff. Now, Will Howard's played a lot of games too. Don't get me wrong, but Dillon Gabriel's the most starts. He should run an offense efficiently, but he's done it in 3 different places now. UCF to Oklahoma, now to Oregon. And I just think the way he plays the game, the efficiency with which he runs his team with, he can make plays with his legs when he needs to, but it's a last resort unless it's a called QB draw when you're not expecting it. Which could happen in the college football playoff with him. I just think he's running a team better than anybody else is running a team. And that's kind of why I went with Dillon Gabriel. Now, and I said all that to say this, CJ, I don't know which one of these guys is going to be the quarterback of the national champion team this year. That's the one thing I think we can say is we really don't know. And that's what makes this fun. Will Howard could easily win the national championship at Ohio State. Quinn could at Texas. Gabriel could at Oregon. Riley Leonard could at Notre Dame. Lar could at Penn State. Or Gunnar Stockton could have a storybook ending with a with a statue built for him in Athens if he led Georgia to a national championship with 0 starts in his life. So that's the crazy thing about where we're at with this college football playoff, CJ, is we have our opinions on these rankings. But if you took 1 through 6, I think we all agree Gunnar Stockton and Madsen are 7 and 8. And Stockton may not be 8, but he just doesn't have the playing experience for us to put him ahead of 7.
He don't have the body of work, right?
No. The top 6 guys, Sam Levitt, Arizona State's not going to win a national championship. So let's just say 5 guys: Howard, Gabriel, Allard, Ewers, or Leonard. We wouldn't necessarily be shocked if any of those guys led a team to a national title.
I'd be with you. I'd agree with that. Again, all 5 upside to take over a football game. Plus, for the most part, a lot of them with the experience that you covet at the quarterback position in these highly anticipated, intensity games. I totally see the argument. Just to recap, Jerry, you're number 1, Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
As was mine as well. I had Quinn Ewers 2, Drew Allard 3. Look, I know people aren't going to be completely in unison with our rankings, Jerry, but that's the beauty of these conversations that we have here at On Texas Football. I'm with you. 5 total quarterbacks in my eyes I could see lifting the national championship trophy. Who will that be? I think, the team that plays the best defense and has the best running game certainly helps. So we'll see. But to put on that cake, you got to be able to do that at the quarterback position. And for Texas, you got to see a little bit more of that to lift that trophy. But before we get out of here, Jerry, any last conversation about these quarterbacks?
No, I mean, look, this is one of the rare years where in college football, and not rare years, but I mean, we're in a 12-team playoff, but who are your Heisman finalists? Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, they're not here. I mean, so that's kind of a rare thing these days. And what I like about these quarterbacks we all watch is, man, they have so many different journeys to get to where they're at. I mean, Riley Leonard was a David Cutcliffe recruit to Duke, wasn't as highly recruited as these guys. Dylan Gabriel, not as highly recruited. Will Howard, not as highly recruited. The other crazy thing about this list, if you take Will Howard transfer, Gabriel 2-time transfer, Levitt transfer, Michigan State, Quinn Ewers transfer, Ohio State, Riley Leonard transfer, Duke. Drew Allard, Maddox Madsen, Gunnar Stockton. So 5 of the 8 have transferred. And that's kind of where we're at in college football today, is that you're not dealing with 8 quarterbacks who signed with the same school and they've grown up in one system. Quarterbacks don't really maximize their talent in one system anymore. They kind of bounce around due to NIL and where we're at in college football now. So 5 of the 8 guys are transfer quarterbacks and at new teams.
That's really interesting. I hadn't put it together that way, but that's why we got you here talking with us, Jerry. Thank you very much. Of course, drop your top 8 rankings down below. I'm sure we'll all be in consensus by the time it's all said and done next week. But for Gerry Hamilton, I'm CJ Vogel. This has been On Texas Football, on Texas versus the college football playoff. Hope to be doing this again with you next week. But for now, y'all have a good one and hook 'em.